On today's episode of the Voices of Boyle, I'm joined by Angela Chilton, who shares her journey from growing up in the north of England to making a new life in rural Ireland. We dive into Angela's story of relocating with her family, finding a home in Boyle, and getting involved in Knockvicar Alpaca Farm. Along the way, we chat about alpaca farming, the challenges and rewards of country living, Angela's passion for natural health and homeopathy, and what it's like to raise a family in this beautiful part of the country. This is a great conversation about embracing change and finding community in unexpected places. Today I'm joined by Angela Chilton. Angela, you're very welcome to the Voices of Boyle. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Carlo.
Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So a lot of people around Boyle, Angela, would know you from Knockvicar Alpaca Farm. But before that, let's go back to the early days. Can you tell us a little bit about where you were born and where you grew up?
Okay, so I was born in Billinge Hospital and in the north of England, basically, in between Liverpool and Manchester. And my parents are from Liverpool, but they moved fairly quickly to what I suppose was considered the countryside, but it's not.
Yeah.
And to a place called Ashton in Makefield, and that's where I grew up. I have, 3 older brothers. I'm the baby of the family. And so I grew up in a place where they talk very much like Coronation Street.
Oh, really?
You know,
the Manchester.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all, very broad Wigan accents like that. But of course, I've got Scouse parents, and there was a lot of us. They were called the Woolly-backs. So there's a lot of people from where I'm from who were, of Scouse parents, but grew up in and around Wigan, and we kind of thankfully have a just middle of the road accent, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't have actually known. I know I got to know you a year or two ago, but I wouldn't have known what part of the UK you were from.
Okay.
I knew you weren't from the north because I know the Georgie accent, but I didn't think you were from there. But I wouldn't have known in between Liverpool or Manchester direction.
I think once you go travelling, you do tend to rein your accent in a bit. I know I was in Australia and I was travelling with these 3 Israeli guys, and they started taking the piss out of my accent about the way I said mum, pub and bus. And I was like, I'm not having this. No.
So did you say you were the baby of the family?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like then back in those days growing up as even a teenager, Angela? Things were very different.
Yeah. I don't know, what was it like? I don't think I really, when I try and think about my teenage years, I actually can't remember much. I think I didn't enjoy that. And I suppose I was always quite mature in my head. Like if we go around to my friend's house, I'd often be in the kitchen with the mum and dad, having the chat with them.
Cup of tea.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I didn't party and stuff, and I had a great group of friends, and one who I'm still really close to. So when I go home, we go for a run and catch up, and but yeah, it wasn't.
Do you go home often?
So I do at the minute. I lost my dad in August, and so Mum is there on her own. She's not on her own. She's got 2 of my brothers live right nearby, and one is a couple of hours away. But obviously, being the only girl, I do feel some level of responsibility to go over. So I've been over quite a lot. I'm probably taking a little break right now, but I realised I've been over 6 times in 9 weeks.
In 9 weeks?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Which you can do because Ryanair.
From Knock?
Knock to Liverpool.
Well then, that's easy, yeah.
It is, it's great. So yeah, I do.
Okay.
I go over a lot.
And your school days, did you enjoy school?
No, I don't think I did. No.
No memories that stand out so from your school days?
I mean, Yeah, there was good days. I suppose secondary school, we happened to have a really good geography teacher, two really good geography teachers, who used to take us on weekends to the Lake District and we'd go hill walking. And then in fifth year, they proposed to us that anybody who'd been on a few of these walks could. They were proposing bringing us to do Wainwright's Coast to Coast walk, where you walk from one side of England to the other. And so we did that. There was 13 of us. And that was really cool.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that.
And then, so what's that one called from east to west? What's that? Did you say it was called that walk?
It's called the Wainwright's Coast to Coast. It's named after Alfred Wainwright.
And then there's another one, isn't it, from the top to John O'Groats, is it?
Yeah.
Is that, okay.
Yeah, that's a big different story.
Oh, no, yeah, of course.
I mean, they were very brave to bring 14, 15-year-olds on a trip like that. And it's interesting now that you reminded me of it. So we would walk through, we had one teacher who just would bring a van and he would meet us at certain points with extra supplies and stuff, but everything else you had to bring on your backs. It was a really good experience. You know, I don't know if kids today get to do that. And you would be walking from one hostel to the other, and we would walk through really 2-horse towns, like nobody around, you know. And the conversation would always turn to, do you think you could ever live like this to each other, you know? And I remember thinking, yeah, if I met the right guy, I could totally see me living here with, you know, living on love and jam butties, you know, in the middle of nowhere and raising a load of kids. So
kind of like a nomadic lifestyle.
Just that country, we called them country bumpkins, you know, these.
Oh, right. That's what it's, right.
For me, it was like, I mean, it wasn't like we lived in a sprawling metropolis ourselves, but we did live in a busy town. So this was like, you could be walking for, you know, a whole day and you wouldn't meet anybody, or you might meet a couple of other walkers and you'd think, where are all the people who live here, you know? And lo and behold, I kind of live somewhere like that right now.
Yeah. So let's then move a little forward. You're married to Andrew.
Yeah.
So how did you guys meet? And more importantly, what brought you to this neck of the woods?
Yeah. So when I was 21, I went to live in Australia for 2 years. Then I moved to Paris for 2 years. And in both places, I had an Irish boyfriend. And I was ready to move on. And I thought, right, this is obviously a thing that I have. And I have Irish heritage. My maiden name is McAlevey. I thought, right, I'm going to just go to Ireland and find the cream of the crop or get it out of my system. And I met a South African.
Oh, he's South African?
Yeah. So go figure. He put an ad in the Irish Times for a flatmate, and I answered the ad. It was on Aungier Street in Dublin, and I went in on St. Patrick's Day, in the days when you could get in and out before the parade started. Like, you'd never do that now. In my little red Fiat Punto, and we chatted, and I went home, and I was working as a nanny at the time, and they said, well, what was the flat like? And I said, it was nice. I said, but it was, I don't know if I could live with him. He's far too healthy. Like, he's running, cycling, he bakes his own bread. He's like, he's making brown rice and courgettes, and he had a similar conversation with his brother where he said he quite fancied me, and he said, well, you can't let her move in then. You can't, that's just not going to work. Anyway, I was studying at the time and I had exams, and he rang up a couple of weeks later to say, how was I doing? They rang me up to ask me how the exams were going. I was like, well, that's nice. And he said, is that Van Morrison you're listening to? I said, yeah. And he said, I've got tickets to see him on Saturday. Do you want to come? I said, I'd die to go and see him. We still to this day love Van Morrison. So he said, well, come. And that was it.
That was it. So that was up in Dublin? And then obviously you got married
We did.
and you moved to Boyle then and opened up.
No.
No.
So we stayed in Dublin. We moved out of the flat. We had Antonio, and then we had Rosie and Joe, and we were living in Sallynoggin. And we had, so Andrew was working in Vodafone, so he was going off to work every day in a suit. And meanwhile, next to the bed, he had a stack of books on backyard self-sufficiency, showing me the different cuts of meat on a cow. He was assembling beehives on the weekend. He had bees in the local Quilcher forestry land. He had chickens in the back garden, espalier fruit trees in the front garden. He was growing carrots,
And you had no inclination of any of this, as in you had no interest at that stage in the kind of sustainability aspect of things?
I had definitely had a passion for health. I don't know where that started, but it's always been there. So I would have been on board with it. I wouldn't have been as excited about doing it, but definitely, and in terms of raising children and exposing them to that, to a farming way of life, I would have been very happy about. So yeah, this was going on. The neighbours started to complain about the chickens. We had a rooster, and he had this whole rigmarole every night where he would put the rooster into a box and then into another box and then into the shed, and to try and keep it quiet. But you could still hear it every morning.
Drives the neighbours mad, I'd say.
And I was really good friends with this one neighbour, and she would knock on the door and I'd answer the door and she'd say, "I need to speak to Andrew." She kept me out of it. And so one day she'd come to complain, and he came back from the door, and I said, I think we just need to move to the country, And obviously the plan was to, like maybe a lot of people do, was to save up shed loads of money and then move to the country and, make it easy. But I think it just didn't happen that way, and it doesn't happen and doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And actually an interesting thing happened that time. We were both, I training? I trained as a homeopath. And anyway, we were both seeing a homeopath at the time, Grania. And I had gone to see her the one day and Andrew was going the next. And I was with her, and she had to go out and take a phone call. Came back in, didn't tell me what it was. Anyway, Andrew went the next day for his consultation, and it turns out she'd just found out that her son had moved to, I'm going to say Iceland, somewhere quite dangerous where he could earn a lot of money to pay for a course he wanted to do. And there'd been an explosion and he'd been killed outright. And Andrew was sitting in front of her saying, "Oh, but we really want to go and live this life, but we don't have the money." And, and very out of character for this woman, she just turned to him and she said, "Andrew, fuck the money, fuck it all. You've just got to go. You've just got to follow your dream. And, if this is where your passion is." So yeah, that was definitely a moment where he came home and was like, he had a change of attitude and was like, okay.
So then you kind of decided, okay, we want to move to the countryside or somewhere a little, somewhere rural. And what brought you to Knockvicar?
Yeah, so we just put a pin in a map.
Really?
We did. We went on daft.ie and we were looking up anything under a silly amount of money that we ended up paying treble. And it came up with a place in I can't remember the name of the place. Highwood. And it was one of those, those derelict houses. And it had a bit of land with it. And Andrew was like, "We can get a caravan. We can live in the caravan and we'll do the house up and all this." Anyway, we phoned the estate agent, and who did I get on the other end of the phone but the gorgeous Sandra McCran. And she was brilliant. She goes, "She couldn't live in that." She says, "No, but she'll come up and we'll sort you out. We'll find something for you, you know." And so we did. We booked into Glencairn house on the N4, you know.
Glencairn.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the lady's name. Agnes Harrington. She looked after us, and we went in and we met with David, and he was brilliant. He just sat us down and said, "Right, tell me what it is you're looking for." And you know, we had a few kind of little bit of criteria, you know, trees, you know, a well, outbuildings.
Those were your basics that you needed to have.
Yeah, things that, you know, we would have liked to have had. Obviously, land. I'm trying to remember the list. Anyway, and then he brought us around and he showed us a bit of everything. He was really good. He was like, "Here's a new build that at the time you could get like something like 50 grand back in tax over 5 years," and didn't like that. It was just like soulless. Here's a really old cottage, and we were like, "Yeah, no, that's a little bit too, should we say, damp and not livable." And then, yeah. Anyway, we had a few mishaps along the way. We had sale agreed on a place, and then she pulled out at the last minute, and we were devastated. And then we found our house, which was Harry Golden's farm in Clara, which is where we live.
Right.
I know. So Knockvicar Alpacas is separate to our farm. We're only 10 minutes apart.
Okay, so there's a separation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you moved down. You set up shop.
Uh-huh.
So Angela, how then did you get involved in the alpaca farm?
So that was a chance meeting Andrew had with a lovely guy who lives in Switzerland, but he just bought Knockvicar House and Farm. And he met Andrew and he said, "I think I want to run alpacas on this farm." And he asked him, did he know anything about alpacas? And Andrew said, "No, but I'm interested and I'm willing to learn." And so, yeah, that was 11 years ago. That was, and they started with, I think, 8 alpacas that came from Switzerland originally. And we now have a herd of in and around 50.
50. And I always wondered, because I remember hearing about it when it came first. Dunny, and I thought for some silly reason that llamas and alpacas were the same, because when I was traveling in Machu Picchu, I came across llamas and there were these huge things. Yeah. Whereas I've come to realize that alpacas are a lot smaller.
Smaller, yeah.
So you have
and different shaped ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back then they looked the same to me. And I was thinking, great, llamas and boy.
Yeah, no, we taser people that call them llamas.
Yeah, just to train
it's a big no-no.
Yeah, of course, yeah, exactly. And of course the differences are huge.
They are.
Yeah. But so you have 50 of them.
In and around.
Yeah, okay. And so were there any challenges then in setting up and kind of maintaining things in the early days on the farm, on the alpaca farm? Andrew had to go and learn. You had to learn about bits and pieces, how to look after them and all that. So what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably a lot of learning on the job, you know. Andrew is very much, if you come to the farm, you'll see they're not circus animals. They're very much, you know, some of them will feed out of your hand and some of them won't. And that's their choice, you know. He's very much of the mind that they're going to live as natural a life as possible, and that they're not here. Yes, some of them we walk them, but some days they don't want to walk, and
that's
you know,
fine.
That's okay. Yeah.
And so you do tours.
We do.
Farm visits. Alpaca feed, I think you do.
So So we offer two options. One is a farm visit where you'll come in and Andrew will tell you everything you need to know about alpacas. I don't think I'd like to think there's not really anything he doesn't know at this point. He's the kind of person who really likes details. And so, he's done a lot of courses. He's very much involved with the Alpaca Association of Ireland. So, he'll tell you, just about everything. He has this brilliant story that I did say to him yesterday, can you try and tell me the story? He tells the story about how the alpacas came from South America and how they ended up and where they split, where the vicunas split and the llamas split and, and so you get to meet them, hand feed them, take selfies if they're up for it. And then we also offer alpaca trekking. So it's where we halter up some of the boys who are good at walking, and you just get to take one on a nice gentle walk down the bog in Knockvicar. We'll stop and pull off branches and feed them to them and take selfies and ask as many questions as you want. For me, that's the bit I'm most kind of into, because I would be, it's a very mindful experience, like I would get involved with some of the treks and I might have 100 things going on in my head, and then I'll get down there and I'll be thinking, I could do with not doing this right now. And then you get hold of an alpaca and you start walking, and 10 minutes in you realize you've forgotten everything and you're just in the moment.
Do you find then, Angela, that a lot of your visitors are from further afield as opposed to local?
A bit of both.
Really?
Yeah.
Because, there's always that, I know myself, if there's something on your doorstep, you might necessarily visit it straight away.
What we do find is there's a lot of people who live 10 minutes away and say, gosh, we didn't know you were here. Or, we've been meaning to come, can't believe we've been meaning to come to you for so long, and I can't believe it's only taken us, it's only happened. But, that's okay. People come when they're meant to come.
Exactly, yeah. And what's the furthest that someone has travelled just to specifically see the alpacas?
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have good few American tourists, when they come over, it's something that they'd be interested in.
What about hen parties? Is it big with hen parties?
Yeah, we've had a few hen parties, yeah.
Certainly not stags anyway. I don't think stags parties would be too interested in.
No.
So the hen parties will kind of incorporate it into a kind of a chill day or something like that.
Well, there's one memorable one that for me, I think it was 2 years ago, and the hen didn't know anything about where they were going, but she was mad about alpacas and she cried. She realized where she was and she cried, and it was really sweet. And they had we set up a table, and they had got a woman from Leitrim had come in and set up a massive big grazing table, and I think there was prosecco, and great pictures. Yeah, great memories of that day. And they really enjoyed themselves, yeah. So and it's something different, isn't it?
It is. I think it's different, yeah. It's and if you can, I suppose, incorporate it into something else, it's nice to an overall experience.
But a lot of the time, it's families and extended families all coming at the same time. That's usually a nice.
And is there many out of interest alpaca farms of similar kind of structure around Ireland?
Yeah, there would be a good few. It's getting bigger. Nowhere near as big as the UK. There's only about 5,000 alpacas in Ireland. So we use the alpacas for twofold. One is for visitors to the farm, and the second is we shear them every year, and we use their fleece to make pillows and duvets.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay. And you're also, another aspect that you talked about earlier to me was you're big into natural health medicine. So where did that come from?
Yeah. I mean, when I think back, I suppose, I think my godmother, who's my cousin, I used to go and stay with her in Manchester. They had an old people's home in Manchester. And, so when you asked about being a teenager, that's something I remember. Any holiday I was there. And they had this huge house on the Chester Road and two small kids. So I used to help out. Be like, here, take the double buggy up the Chester Road and bring them to McDonald's. And, but anyway, she used to drive nearly an hour once a week to an organic farm, and we used to collect a box of organic fruit and veg. And then we used to go into the health food shops in Manchester, and she'd be buying all her, weird stuff.
Yeah.
And that, like, to this day, the smell of a health food shop just
brings back those memories.
Yeah. Yeah. I just was like, this is my thing. And then when I moved to Australia, I ended up working in a health food shop for two naturopaths. Learnt an awful lot in there from them. And just, I don't know, just always.
You've always had an interest.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a teenager, I do remember going to the doctor a couple of times for various things. And I don't know when, but I did develop, I suppose, a little bit of caution around them, around medicines and what they were doing to people,
Traditional allopathic medicine, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So from there, I studied naturopathy for 3 years, and then I studied homeopathy for 4 years. And I practiced that when I moved to Boyle for a few years, and decided to take a break when the kids were little, and I've never that. So I've raised 4 kids, 23 years of parenting, and I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've brought any of them to the doctor. So for me, homeopathy and naturopathy and all of the things that I've studied have really just empowered me to deal with those childhood illnesses.
Yeah, the little everyday, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, is that we should, try and get to the stage where we're not rushing down every time for every sniffle.
Exactly.
Because our bodies don't need drugs for everything. We need them for certain things, of course. Yeah. But it's this just kind of society we've been kind of conditioned to now that we run down every time.
Yeah.
And that does play its part in overall health. One question, naturopathy and homeopathy, what's the difference?
So naturopathy so a naturopath would have studied lots of different tools, say. So like, off the top of my head, fasting is a tool. Ear acupuncture is a tool. Herbs are a tool. Diet, nutrition, lifestyle. What did I miss out?
This is for
iridology.
Okay. So
the study of the iris. You can see a lot about what's going on in the body. We did that. Yeah. So it's like a whole. It's why wouldn't you use the whole bag of tools?
Yeah. And if you had to pick, if someone put a gun to your head and says you can study just naturopathy or homeopathy for the next 5 years, which one would you have more interest in?
Well, obviously I did study homeopathy. So I would have done homeopathy within the course of naturopathy.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
And so then I did the 4-year course in homeopathy. And but the other one that I have a love for is herbs. Yeah.
Okay, so a herbalist as well would be in that kind of circle as well, would it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So again, using the ground, using the kind of the natural option.
Yeah.
And
other things like tapping, there's meditation, mindfulness. They're all tools that a naturopath would dip into. You'd have someone sitting in front of you, and then you would be able to say, okay, maybe this person needs some affirmations, or, whatever.
Right.
There's actually and then you talk about the consultation. There's a homeopath up in Scotland, I remember being told about, who at the end of a consultation, which can be up to an hour, he would ask his patients, would you like a remedy? Because oftentimes you'll find that people come to, if you've only ever gone to the doctor who, they're under a fierce amount of pressure, I think you get maybe 8 minutes or something it is in the UK. When you sit in front of somebody for a whole hour and talk about yourself, talk about what's going on with your body, and like homeopaths and naturopaths, they want to know, what way do you sleep? What side do you sleep on? What makes this better? Is it better for cold or for heat? What time of the day does this cause you a problem, And often it's the first time that they've actually sat down and offloaded stuff,
Yeah, interesting. And you're also interested in bioenergy.
So yeah, I'm 6 months into an 8-month course in bioenergy healing, which I'm finding fascinating, and a gorgeous bunch of women. Just happens to be 20 women on the course in Ballinasloe.
Go once or twice a week, is it? Or
once a month.
Once a month. And so for those that are listening, I know a bit about bioenergy healing, but you give us a little kind of a little snapshot about what it is, what the basis of it is, and what's it used for.
So it's really hard to explain it, even when you're studying it. But so I've always explained, so if you think homeopathy and herbs to some degree and bioenergy is energetic medicine, and we are made up of energy. I think everyone's nearly on board with that now, that we're not just, skin and bones. We're energy. And I always explain this, that did you ever walk into a room in your house and maybe there's been some argy-bargy going on and you can just feel it,
Tension.
Yeah, but you can feel it. So you can explain it in a couple of ways, like we have electricity everywhere. We can't see it, but we know it's there. And so the body is like that. We have energy flowing through the body, and sometimes those energy fields get blocked. And so bioenergy helps to unblock those fields, and so that we're restored to balance and good health.
Mm. And then with naturopathy, homeopathy, herbalism, bioenergy, and all the other areas, there's a lot of kind of scare tactics that we see in society these days about not wanting to go down the alternative path for obvious reasons. Big pharma. Have you come across that in even your homeopathy days, where people will kind of almost look down because it's not traditional, even though traditional was once,
of course.
Yeah. You've come across that.
Yeah. And look, like I think it was Liz you had on said, modern Western medicine, like if I'm in a car accident, don't bring me to a homeopath.
Exactly.
If I'm having a heart attack, I'll maybe if I could grab some aconite, that would help. But if I can't,
tie me over,
just get me in the ambulance.
Exactly. There's a lane, I think, for all of these different injuries and stuff like that, and we need to have everything at our disposal.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, I hate the fact that it's called alternative. It's like in the supermarket, in SuperValue, they used to have this one shelf, one big bookshelf of products, and above the top it used to say health foods.
Well, what's the rest of the stuff?
And you want to say, well, what's all the other stuff about?
What's the other? If this is saying health, like
yeah. So in an ideal world, people would be proactive about their health. You know, I am not with a homeopath at the moment, but I was with one up until last year for 2.5 years. Now, I wasn't sick for 2.5 years. I was maintaining my health, you know, and I know where she is if I need her, you know, because sometimes it's not, you can't treat yourself. You're not able to. But in an ideal world, we would be proactive about our health, and we would go to the herbs and the nutrition and the homeopathy, and we go to those things first. And then if that doesn't help, then we could go to the doctor. Unfortunately, when I was practicing, that's what I would find, is it was the other way round. So you would get someone, say, for example, with eczema, which I had as a child, and they'd been to the doctor and they'd had years and years of steroids and creams. And so then the first job of the homeopath is to try and unpick all of that, try and find out what were the original symptoms, because now you've got symptoms of creams, steroids. So, yeah.
Would people go, I've used a homeopath in the past, and they prescribe what they call constitutions. So would it be a case as well that not everyone would need a constitution? Like you'd said there, sometimes that this guy in Scotland, he would talk to you for an hour, maybe dissect things, give you some advice, and then he would ask, do you want something?
Yeah.
You know, so, and I presume some people then would turn around and say, you know, I'm okay for now, for this time, and to come back. And that's a great way, isn't it? Because sometimes it might be as simple as fixing your sleep, or fixing the amount of water you're drinking or not drinking, or something like that.
Yeah.
You can see that how it just doesn't have to be, you have to get something. Like we've been kind of always conditioned to think we need something.
Yeah. Well, I think the example of him, and obviously it's quite extreme, because people also want to feel like they're getting value for, they're paying for a service. But it was more the fact that sometimes just, you know, being heard, being listened to, like really listened to. We did an exercise in college last month where we were put into groups of 3, and we had 1 minute each. And the person had to talk about something that they were really, something that scared them. And the other 2 had to listen. And they had to say nothing and just really, really actively listening.
Active listening, yeah.
And it was such a powerful exercise, you know, because how often do we actually have that level of somebody sitting in front of you, really like heartfelt listening? You know, so you get that in a consultation, usually, whether it's, I would hope, with homeopathy or with, you know.
Yeah. I think as well, someone actively listening in a qualified capacity can be therapeutic in itself without the end result of being prescribed something, a constitution or whatever. So sometimes, like, again, you think, what did I pay for? You know, but the therapeutic aspect comes from the advice that they've acquired in their industry to give. And I think we need to kind of go back to that, as well as try and take on board advice without having to think we need something for it. But
even just as a human being, just even not qualified in anything, but just another human being just listening and saying, Carlo, I hear you. That was awful, or that was great.
I'm trying to practice my active listening now, Angela, but I'm trying to think of my next question.
It's getting a bit intense, isn't it?
Not at all. Not at all. So do you have a favourite natural remedy that you use, that you go back to? Is there some little concoction that you kind of give yourself every so often?
Probably, there's lots. Probably aconite would be the first one, because aconite is a remedy for shock. Do you know the foxglove you see growing?
I've heard of it.
Anyway, it looks like that, only it's beautiful purple blue. Anyway, it's a remedy for shock. But you could take aconite in the first 24 hours of just about anything. Well, I do. So, like, if you feel like you're getting a cold, if you feel like you're coming down with something, I'll take a bit of aconite. And
how do you take it? How is it, like?
In a pill.
Oh, in a pill. Okay.
Yeah. Or you can put one in water and you can stir it. That's called plussing. So you see, this is the problem with homeopathy. It costs nothing. The remedies, they cost very little. And you can put one pill in a glass of water and you can stir and sip every 15 minutes. So like, say if you had a fever and you were going to give belladonna, which is a great one for a fever, anything red, hot, burning, pupils dilated, those. I used to take photographs of the kids when they were like, because it was just amazing to watch. They were little babies and they'd burn up, and in another lifetime I might have been the kind of person to reach for some Calpol, but I had belladonna, and so I could put that in water and stir it and just give them teaspoons every 5 minutes, and then you'd watch it settle. And what I noticed is when they were little, those childhood illnesses were so vital. Those big fevers that they burn up, they were so vital because that was their vitality. It was their immune system growing. I remember Rosie one time getting really sick, and the grandparents had just arrived for a few days, and it was like, oh God, they haven't seen her, and she's just flat on the couch, just flattened out, no energy. But I was dosing her up, and then suddenly she was up and she walked. They'd have a leap of, I always noticed there was a leap of development after something like that. It was like the body has to shut down while it's having a reboot or an upgrade. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay, right. Yeah, because when you're talking there about fevers, they reckon, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, that's the body's way, obviously, of trying, the body will look after itself when it gets to a certain level to try and reduce that fever, but that we shouldn't be straight away trying to take something that will reduce the fever straight away. They reckon it can be healthy to just get a little bit of a fever. It can kind of flush everything, all the toxins out, but we're kind of led to, at the start, to try and get rid of it straight away.
Well, it's not anybody's fault, and I wouldn't want to be seen as being critical of any person's point of view. People are very busy, and maybe the kids are needing to get well quicker. But my experience, when you bring down that fever with Western medicine, then that child feels well, and then they go out and play, and then later on the body goes, no, I told you we were going to get sick today. I needed you to just rest. So I do feel like for me personally, I would never tell anybody, how to treat your children. That was just the way that worked for us.
Yeah.
And Andrew, he would have been of the same mind that, and when you see it happening, then it gives you confidence and goes, okay, yeah, that's how that's going to work there. I mean, it didn't mean that there weren't times that we, had to seek help.
Of course. Yeah.
But when we did, it was serious.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that's what it's there for. Okay, Angela, so you moved to Boyle around the mid-2000s, 2005, 2006?
2006, yeah.
Okay, and what were your initial impressions of this area then and now?
Well, we loved the area. We loved the peacefulness. We loved the countryside. We loved how simple life was. I loved how, there was nothing to spend money on a Saturday. Does that sound really bad? But it was like, in the city, you're just like constantly, there's this whole got to spend money. You got to go out and do this, and there was a couple of things. My hairdresser in Dublin, she said, "You're going to love it down the country." She said, "The only queue is the queue for communion."
Okay,
that's the only traffic you'll see. Which was true. And a couple of our friends in Dublin that knew we were moving said some interesting things. One of them said, "Oh, they don't really like people outsiders coming in. And I said, oh, is that right? And Mick O'Dowd Sandra would have been the first contact, and David, and then Mick O'Dowd would have been the second solicitor. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. People were like, where have you been?
Yeah.
Come on in, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? Where do you want to live?
Yeah.
It was, I remember the first conversation I had with Mick was on the phone for half an hour. And it was quite funny because the rooster was going in the background. And he goes, is that a rooster in the background? He said, you live in Sallynoggin. And he must have thought, okay, these are characters. But I remember getting off the phone and saying, oh my God, I was half an hour on the phone with the solicitor. I wonder how much that's going to cost me. Because our solicitor in Dublin was like, poof, and then he'd send you a bill. Like, it was, so that was one thing. And then the other thing someone said was, you do realise once you leave Dublin to move to the country, you won't be able to come back because you'll be priced out of the housing market. And I was here 5 minutes and thought, what made you think I was going to want to come back to that, to the traffic and, when you're raising kids at the zoo. So when we did go back, it would be for the zoo because we had an annual membership. So when we lived in Dublin, 3 small kids, I used to love the zoo. I could walk into the zoo and they could just go because the same big glass walls that kept the animals in were the same glass walls that meant my children couldn't go very far. And I loved that about it, and we loved the animals and nature. And but when we moved here, if we went back, I remember walking into the zoo and suddenly there was all these people and I was like, give me your hand, don't go far, make sure you can see me at all times. My perspective had changed dramatically within a few months, and in fact, I remember a friend from Dublin coming to visit us and she had 2 small boys and she pulled up at the house, and our house is at the end of a boreen road. There's nothing around but fields and cows. And I went, we were outside and we said hello and we hugged, and then I said, right, come on, I'll put the kettle on. And she said, boys, come on, we're going inside. And I was like, oh no, you don't need to do that. They can come in or they can stay out, but it doesn't matter. The door's open and there's nothing that's going to happen to them,
And as those over the years, then have those feelings changed in any way, or you're still 100% content, happy life where you are?
Very much so. Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit more traffic now sometimes going into Carrick. But, from our house to Knock Airport is 50 minutes and it always has been. And I can't see that changing.
Yeah. And what would be your favourite place in and around Boyle, Knockvicar? What would be your...
Well, I'm a runner, so the first thing that comes to mind would be nice running routes. I quite like the Cloonty Killer run. We call it Cloonty Killer. I don't know.
In and around the castle?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, okay. That's back open again, isn't it? Because it was closed for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the bog walk around Knockvicar is beautiful. Yeah. The Bluebell Woods, although what that's going to look like.
We were down there the other day.
Have they cleared any of the trees?
It's cleared, but yeah, you can see a lot of trees are down.
Yeah.
And then even that's just on the loop around.
Okay.
There's a lot, but it's still...
Yeah.
I didn't know they had done a big car park down there.
Yeah. Well, it was needed because, there was an accident going to happen. People were starting to park on that road, which it's a bad bend anyway.
And did you see down there as well, there's a sign saying reverse parking only?
No.
Yeah, well, I thought that was strange. I was looking going like, why can't it just park facing in towards the fence after reverse, which I did.
Yeah.
But I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a big car park as well. It's not as if it's a small one. I can understand if it's a small one for people maybe getting in and out, but this is like a big enough car park.
Yeah,
so,
interesting.
Anyway, yeah. So you were here obviously then for the big COVID era with the lockdowns and all that. Have you any lasting memories, good or bad, I mean, for a lot of people as well would say COVID was a great time for them. They got to spend more time with family. They loved the isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Then other people, it wasn't. Have you any personal one that you kind of will look back on in years?
I suppose I was talking about this last week in college that there were negatives and there were pluses. The plus, so I'll just focus on the positive. That I see it as a gift. Like, we, as a whole society, we were given an opportunity to pare back everything in life. And then when it was time to come out, we each got to decide and choose the experiences, places, people that resonate with us. And I think it was a way of giving everybody a chance to reboot, if you like, and say, okay, now what actually brings you joy? What actually puts you into a state of flow? To me, that was the gift of it. I mean, we were very, very lucky in that we could walk for miles and miles. We didn't necessarily, obviously we had the farm in Knockvicar, so we were able to go to a farm. Not that I paid much attention to.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people like yourselves that had space and had plenty of outdoor activities to keep you occupied, brilliant.
Yeah.
I think the ones that have a negative negative kind of association with lockdowns is because ones that maybe living in cities and apartments and that, where you can't go out.
Exactly.
So I mean, their perspective is going to be so much different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I particularly, I was thinking of a lot of my cousins live in Mallorca, beautiful place to live, and one of my cousin's kids, 2 small kids, and small apartments. They live in small apartments because they spend most of their life outdoors, and looking at a pool they couldn't get into, I don't think they were allowed to take the kids to the supermarket or something like that. That must have been really, the lockdown for me was the nice part. For me, the unpleasant part, the negative side, was when we were all allowed out again. And it was a segregated society and all of that nonsense.
The other thing then is, how long were you out of power for during the big storm a few weeks ago?
Yeah, so we'd just gotten over Storm Dara. We were out for 8 days with Storm Dara. And then, we were 16 days without power.
16?
Yeah.
Okay, that was one of the longest then.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, with the second one, we had acquired a generator, which I don't know what we'd have done without.
For the 16 days?
Yeah.
Oh, so you had, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want to think about and even with the generator, it caused so much tension. I just kept saying everyone was on a knife edge. And, we've 4 kids, 2 of them have left home. And just so happened that they were home for Christmas and they both stayed for the whole of January. So we had a house with 6 of us. And
that's the tension you're on about. Okay.
Yeah. And, everybody's got their thing going on. And, it was challenging, to say the least, which made obviously when your kids leave and go and live in another country, it's heartbreaking. So the day that they both went back this year on the 3rd of February, a few friends were like, "Oh, you're right." I was like, never better. Because they need to go and get space and do their thing. And we all need our space,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we wrap it up, Angela, is there anything else you'd like to talk about that we haven't touched on?
No. Can't think of anything. I think we've talked the legs off.
That's fair enough. Where can people find more information about the farm? Is it Instagram? Do you have a website? So
Facebook and Instagram. We have somebody, a brilliant guy, working on our social media for us at the minute, and he, I believe, is building us a website.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put, when this comes out, I'll put the link on it.
But all of our traffic comes through Facebook and Instagram, actually.
Perfect.
Yeah. it works.
Yeah, perfect. Well, listen, thanks very much for coming on the Voice of Boyle, Angela. It's been a pleasure. And give my regards to Malachy.
I will. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.